Hi, welcome to the 2020 Virtual Homeless Awareness Conference. You are in the Keiki Connections panel on youth homelessness for 17 years old and under. Let's see. Our moderator is Chris Jackson, and I will, I'm sorry, let me introduce myself. My name is Jason Kasamoto. I work for Scott Morishige in the Office of the Governor's Coordinator on Homelessness, and the moderator for this session is Chris Jackson, and I'll let her take it away.
Thanks so much, Jason. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Good morning, and welcome to our breakout session entitled Keiki Connections, Connecting Young Children Experiencing Homelessness with Needed Programs and Services. As Jason mentioned, my name is Chris Jackson, and I'll be the moderator for our panel presentation. I'm with the Executive Office on Early Learning, and I serve as the Head Start State Collaboration Director. And with me this morning is Donna Monibov, who is with the Department of Education for Homeless Children and Youth Program. Donna, want to say hi?
Aloha, everybody. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks. And Donna's going to be helping us with some of the Q&A section a little bit later on. Together, Donna and I co-lead a group of early childhood providers and advocates who form a child homelessness action team. We affectionately call ourselves CHAT. And CHAT's priorities currently are to raise awareness of early childhood homelessness through venues such as this, increase access to early childhood programs and services, and use data to better inform our collective work. We'd like to extend our heartfelt mahalo to the Conference Planning Committee for allowing us the opportunity to do a breakout session today, and we want to thank all of you for joining us. Next slide, please. We're grateful for your interest in this critical issue of early childhood homelessness. Your being here today is reaffirming and strengthens our belief that as a community, we can enhance our work together to address the critical needs of our most vulnerable birth to 5 keiki through more keiki connections, that is, more collaborative partnerships. And we originally had wanted you to enter your contact information into the chat, but we're going to forego that for today just move on here. We are excited to be able to share some important information being done around work that's being done in communities within our state. And we hope to have some time at the end to address some of the questions you might have. So the purpose of our session today is to increase your awareness of why we need to be connecting more keiki experiencing homelessness with needed services and supports, and how partnering together will enable us to make this happen. So let's begin. Our first speaker is Barbara DeBaryshe from the University Center of the Family, who last year conducted an early childhood homeless needs assessment to determine what some of the challenges and opportunities there are here in Hawaii to connect more young children experiencing homelessness to early childhood programs and services. Barb will be providing some context for our session today, and she will be followed by a panel of early childhood service providers. Larae Balag is the Early Head Start Director for Maui Family Support Services. Kasey Galariada is the Community Outreach Manager for Partners in Development Kapa'alana Homeless Family Education Program. And Sara Alimoot is a Homeless Concerns Liaison for the Hawaii Department of Education, Education for Homeless Children and Youth Program. Each of our service providers will share briefly about some of the services they provide, their challenges in connecting birth to 5 keiki to resources, especially during this time of COVID-19, successful partnerships they currently have in place, and opportunities they see for additional partnerships, which is where some of you hopefully will come in. So having said that, Barb, will you get us started?
Aloha, and good morning, everybody. Can people hear me, Chris?
Yeah.
Okay. Next slide, please. So as you know, I'm Barbara. So how many of Hawaii's young children aged birth through 5 are affected by homelessness? We don't have exact numbers, but if you include both children identified in the homeless management system and the so-called hidden homeless, or kids living in doubled up situations, it's estimated that 1 in 35, that's almost 3%, of our young keiki are affected. And we can only assume, of course, that this number is increasing in the COVID era. So we're concerned about this target age group because they are very developmentally malleable, both for good and for ill. So positive early experiences set the foundation for emotional well-being and lifelong learning. But conversely, trauma experienced in early childhood can actually impede the development of the brain structures responsible for learning, memory, and emotional regulation. So I assume that you are all too familiar with the risks associated with homelessness, but you may not know the importance of timing. Having first homeless experience before age 15 is associated with much worse adult outcomes. And perhaps surprisingly, we're finding that the adjustment of children in doubled-up situations is very similar to those who are in sheltered or unsheltered situations. So it's not simply being houseless, it is instability that it negatively affects kids' development. But luckily, we can help children be resilient, and we know that stable enrollment in high-quality childcare, so child's attending, even if its family is highly mobile, has been found to promote better positive social emotional development and school readiness of preschoolers who are experiencing homelessness. And that's why we have set our goal to have our children be enrolled in early learning programs at the same rate as their stably housed peers. Next slide, please. So our statewide needs assessment was done in the fall of 2019, so please remember this is pre-COVID information. And we focused on two groups of experienced providers from two sectors, staff from family shelters and housing programs that serve a large number of young children, and the early learning programs in our state who are mandated to serve this population. That includes all our Head Start grantees and the Kapa'alana program. We also sent surveys to all the other licensed child care providers in the state, and these folks represent a very large potential pool of child care providers who could be serving these kids. Next slide, please. So here's what our experienced providers had to say. First is that child care is the key to parents being able to take advantage of job training, of higher education, and to secure employment. But there's many challenges to parents accessing child care. They fell into these four general areas: the practical challenges of getting the child enrolled into school every day, personal challenges faced by families who are often in crisis mode, of course, the issues of navigating the bureaucracy of our child care subsidy and homeless services system. But I think the most interesting theme was that of disciplinary silos. So here our two sectors recognize that we need each other. The shelter and housing providers want to understand more about child and family development. Early childhood professionals want to know more about trauma-informed care, and very much want help getting families connected to housing and needed community services. And both groups want to work together closely to identify children and get them into appropriate early childhood programs. Next slide. So the larger group of community child care providers are by and large willing to serve this population. Their main concerns have to do with getting paid and with their own lack of expertise. So because their kuleana is child care and early childhood education, they recognize that families have complex needs that they're simply not equipped to address. Next slide, please. In terms of solutions and recommendations, these were the major messages that we were hearing from participants, and I'm going to focus on the two that are most relevant to today's panel. The need for interprofessional collaboration was the strongest message that we heard from our participants. We need to have close working relationships among compatible organizations. So not only knowing what's out there and what services are available, but having a trusted contact in each of these other organizations so you can pick up the phone, talk to your colleague, and actually get things moving. To build cross-sector collaboration, it was suggested to do things like visit other people's sites and programs, hold formal networking events, and having joint professional development and training sessions on a variety of topics that were identified. And a good example of this cooperation is the Memorandum of Understanding that's in place between the Department of Education and the Head Start programs. And one of the activities that falls in this MOU is the DOE community liaisons and Head Start staff working together closely to identify, enroll the younger siblings of children served in the DOE. Our second major theme was that of co-location. One shelter director said, on-site childcare is a fantasy of mine. And so this is an exciting idea where a childcare provider or a parent-child interaction program would offer their services on the site of a shelter or housing facility and typically enroll both shelter residents and community children. We have several examples of this kind of collaboration already going on in our state, and you'll hear more about this from the other panels. Other themes included to selectively recruit and support community providers who are most ready to serve these families, the need for more child-specific data, and to put young Keiki at the forefront of our local policy. So thank you for listening to my whirlwind summary, and I will pass the baton to Larae Balag, Director of Early Head Start with Maui Family Support Services.
Thank you, Barb. Next slide, please. So Early Head Start is a federally funded program for families prenatal to age 5. These families are of low-income poverty level and children with disabilities. Besides the mentioned guidelines that I previously stated, families can also be eligible based on other criteria, such as foster care and homeless. Today, we'll focus on the homeless population, which is a self-identified criteria for our program. For MFSS, we follow the McKinley-Vento definition for guidance when determining if a family is homeless. We also look at if a child or prenatal applicant is in a rehabilitation program and if they have no safe place to go after program completion. So that's how families can enroll into our program. And then also all families will receive a case manager who will assist with referrals for other agencies. This individual will also assist with finding permanent housing. Currently, my program serves 26% of homeless families during last program year. And 10%, unfortunately, of these families were chronic homeless, meaning they enter a home, they pick up a job, we're working with them on their family goals to be self-sustained, and, things happen. And then they may end up back at the beach, or they may end up back at the park, or on the waiting list for the few shelters that we have here on Maui. Currently, during this program year right now, our program has 10% of families that are homeless. Some of the services that these families receive is prenatal services. So if a mom is pregnant, she'll get assistance with transportation to and from the doctors, to and from the dentist, any assistance needed so that she can get to those appointments to keep her and the baby healthy during that time. We also have ongoing social-emotional support. So our staff is trained with trauma-informed care, and we continuously look for opportunities to also work with our families on trauma and how they can build their strength. Some home-based services that are also offered for each family is weekly 1.5-hour visits. For right now, it can be face-to-face, outdoors, safely. We've written a policy for that, or it can be virtually. And for these families, if they don't have a device to do the virtual visits, our program will provide it, as well as assist them with Wi-Fi options. And a lot of families seem to enjoy that. They can reach out to their home visitor or to their case manager at any time in case they are of need. We also offer twice a month socializations, which is really, really fun for our families. All the staff get together and we virtually sing songs, read stories, provide trainings, and we also provide them with some giveaways. So that's another fun event for the families to participate in. Center-based services, which is when your child comes to the classroom, is daily, Monday through Friday. We have locations at Lahaina. So the Lahaina shelter, we also have one in Wilipalu, which is right in central Maui. And then we just opened one at Waiale. And so that was pretty exciting. And so we're hopeful that we can continue to branch out and open more childcare services. Within the center-based service, they do receive free breakfast, lunch, snack. We teach them self-help skills. They practice, how to feed themselves, fine motor skills, how to socialize with their peers. And we've seen a lot of growth with a lot of our children. On the left-hand side, I have our YouTube link. You can watch it later, so you might want to make a note of that. And that goes directly to our program's virtual learning center. And then I also have Maui Family Support Services website. So if you have clients that need to apply or would like to apply, they can do it right online, and then we'll send a case manager out to assist them with the rest of the services. Next slide, please. So some of the challenges that we've experienced, especially during COVID, ensuring that our families are safe during this time and understand the ever-changing county laws, state laws that are wrapped around with COVID. We did come across some challenges with phone numbers being changed, maybe the address changed often. A lot of our families had to double up with their family members. Technology challenges, so internet, or understanding how to use the different platforms. There are so many virtual platforms, so we really have to take the time to work with each family on the different platforms for them to keep connected with the program. Locating families, so sometimes, especially during this last, I want to say the last 3 months has been really tough. We've had to send out home visitors, leadership staff to go and look for families, or go look at a family's home that was a last known address, just to kind of get a contact on where the family is at and what resources they may need. Families are also being overwhelmed. A lot of our families that are homeless, they're trying to do the whole online learning and trying to understand. And then now there's that blended version that is starting. So there's a lot on their plate. And so we've just assisted them with resources or how to time manage between their little one and their grade school child. Next slide, please. So some successful collaborations that we have, like I mentioned earlier, Kahale Akeola Homeless Resource Center, we have one on Waiale, and we also have one in Lahaina. And we also have partnerships with our DOE liaisons on Maui who assist us when we do have families that have challenges with children that are in grade school. Licensed child care providers. We are in the process of opening up more partnerships with licensed private child care providers so they can take our early Head Start children into their care. Some upcoming opportunities is our Hui Malama Learning Center. We don't have a teen program here on Maui, and so that is something that we are trying to get started. A lot of teens drop out if they have no safe place to take their child, and some of those teens could become homeless because their family turns their back on them. And so that is something that we are trying to prevent. Next slide, please. And then some of my sister partnerships here with Head Start, Early Head Start across the state. It's just a list of the different programs that have partnerships. So Kauai for Child and Family Services, they have a Head Start, Early Head Start program and some of their partnerships. And then right here on Maui, Maui Economic Opportunity, MEO, they do Head Start. So those are your children that are 3 to 5. Our program is prenatal to 3. And so that is another resource for you. On Hawaii Island, we have Family Support Hawaii and their partnerships that they have there. Next slide. Okay, and then on Oahu, which I'm sure majority of you are familiar with, we have HCAP and we have PACT. And those are their listed partnerships that they serve. PACT, if you'll notice, when you look at their list, they are also located on Hawaii Island. So when you reach out to PACT for information, be sure that you're looking at the right location if it's Oahu or if it's Hawaii Island. Next slide. And now I'll pass it on to my partner, Kasey.
Mahalo, Larae. Next slide, please. Aloha, everyone. As you know, I'm Kasey. I'm from Kapa'alana's Homeless Family Education Program. Kapa'alana was originally founded with a mission to break the cycle of poverty through education of the entire family. So we offer a whole family approach with our services. We offer free early childhood education, toddler and preschool classes, parent education classes, and we're located at the various shelters on the island, all along the Leeward Coast, as well as homeless encampments, low-income housing, and most recently in community centers in more stable housing areas so that we can sort of follow the transition of families as they progress through this journey. Our free parent education and adult classes are geared to help the parents as they work with their children and transition out of either housing or they might have unstable health needs. And so we're sort of tackling that in our parent education classes. Currently, we're offering free food distributions to our families and clients because we're not at site. Typically, our sites run from 3 to 4 hours a day, 1 hour of pack time where the entire family is together, and then 2 hours in which the parent is alone in their class and they have lunch and have their classes, and the child is either in their toddler or preschool classes. So because we don't have that lunch and breakfast service right now, we are offering free food distributions. We provide homeless outreach and housing transitional support. So we team up with KWO and a lot of different homeless outreach programs to sort of help families transition into shelters as well. We have home visiting services. We provide assessments and screening of our Keiki, birth through 5, and we offer transitional help and support when children are extending into other services. Next slide, please. Some of the challenges, as you all know, very similar to my other partners here, lack of technology, Wi-Fi access for families, just meeting the various needs of families. There's such a wide range of needs, and they're experiencing so many different levels of hardship during COVID, and really trying to meet all of those needs has been a little bit of a struggle for us. And then the lack of face-to-face and physical interactions with our families in crisis and our at-risk families has probably been the largest struggle of all, because, we know how far a hug can go, a physical interaction, face-to-face, that's how we build trust. And so we're definitely being innovative and pulling out all of the whatever tricks we have, but that's been a big struggle for us, not just for the families, but our staff, in really wanting to connect in that way. Keeping our staff employed and safe has been a little bit of a struggle. Caring for the needs of staff and families. And next slide, please. So some successful collaborations. I tried to just stick to the ones that are a little bit more recent. We recently teamed up with Kamaile Elementary and Kamehameha Schools to provide this service called the Wi-Fi Mobile, in which we take our large 11 to 12 passenger vans out to different communities around Kamaile. We'll park the van for 4 hours, and it's got this huge mobile device that will allow a certain radius of Wi-Fi to be accessed by the families in that area, so that the Keiki can get on their school-provided device and actually attend school, and they have access to Wi-Fi. So they didn't need hotspots. And we park in, I believe right now it's 4 to 6 different spots on any given day. We have various food companies we're partnering with to provide food distributions to our at-risk families. We've partnered with Waianae Public Library. We're currently in the process of working a project through so that we can have donated books in a certain area of the library where children either without library cards or expired library cards, or perhaps the families can't afford the fees, can go in and borrow the book in that area anyway. And if they can return it, that's great. If not, it's no loss to the library. The books are donated, but the Keiki can get that experience. We're also partnering with Kamehameha Schools. We've collaborated to provide some outreach and mobile services, as well as kokua kits, which are kits that have activities for the Keiki, to homeless families out on Kauai. We're partnering with Lili'uokalani Trust, Kalaho'o West Oahu Homeless Outreach. We partner with regularly as we are in the shelter and provide services to the clients in their shelter. ELEL, as well as Hawaii Community Foundation. We're partnering with them to provide more trauma-informed care to our families and our staff. All right, mahalo everybody for listening to my spiel. And next I'd like to hand it off to Sara Alimoot from the Department of Education.
Thanks, Kasey. Hi, everybody. As Kasey introduced, I'm Sara. I'm the Community Homeless Concerns Liaison with the Department of Education. I serve the Windward District, Castle, and Kahuku Complex area schools, and I'm looking forward to sharing with you guys how we serve those students experiencing homelessness in pre-K and beyond. Next slide, please. So I'd like to start by sharing with you all today this video from Schoolhouse Connection. I like this video because regardless of what one's expectation of a student experiencing homelessness might look like, they're not always easy to spot. And it talks quickly about how we are all a team in supporting these Keiki. So if you could go ahead and try the video, please.
Do you see the child experiencing homelessness? It'll take more than a glance. Despite record numbers of U.S. children without a permanent home, many experiencing homelessness remain largely invisible. And COVID-19 has made the problem even worse. Why does it matter? For a better future, every child needs an education. But families and youth experiencing homelessness can face unfair hurdles that make it difficult to enroll and participate in school. We all have a role to play, ensuring each child has the opportunity to learn. What can you do? It starts with looking closer. Just because homelessness isn't easy to spot, doesn't mean it's not there. If you've identified a child or a family who may need help, whether you are a teacher or a member of the community, learn more by talking with them with sensitivity. And finally, act by helping families and youth experiencing homelessness connect to resources at school and exercise their right to an education. Visit letseducateeverychild.org to learn more and find useful resources that can help families and youth experiencing homelessness. Together, we can ensure all children get the opportunities they deserve.
Yay, great. Thank you so much. I'm glad that worked out. So there in blue, you see our brand new enrollment poster. We want families to know that even if their housing is unstable, their education doesn't have to be. You can look for this poster at any of your area schools, and you can also feel free to request one for your organization. This enrollment poster offers a snapshot of our program's eligibilities, rights, and services. And through our Education of Homeless Children and Youth Office, myself, along with my co-liaisons across the state, we work to remove barriers related to education and support stability for students experiencing homelessness, pre-K all the way up to 12th grade. So whether students are living in a shelter, unsheltered, doubled up with others, they have inadequate housing, maybe they're living in a container on a farm, or maybe they're even living without their parents, in any of those conditions, they're all eligible and have rights to education. Some of the primary ways we support educational stability is with immediate enrollment, transportation to and from school, or assisting with students remaining at their school of origin. To kind of elaborate real quickly, students have the right to immediately enroll in school, even if they don't have some of the necessary documents that are typically required. Another way that we support educational stability is through allowing them to remain at their school of origin. So if they're moving frequently, maybe they move into a shelter that's not necessarily in their district, they have the right to remain at that school to minimize the frequent moves and the loss of education when that happens. In addition, so on the next slide here, I'm sorry, not the next slide, hold on. The next image you see here is our questionnaire to determine eligibility, more commonly known as the MB1. Here is where families identify their living arrangement, and when we receive this form, that's when we get in contact with them. Towards the bottom 2/3 of this form is where we ask families to identify their younger pre-K siblings, and we work with Head Start or other early learning agencies to get those kids enrolled in some kind of early ed programming. Okay, next slide. Now, as a lot of my co-panelists mentioned, even when we do identify these kids, these pre-K students, it's often a challenge to get them signed up, whether it's related to openings, whether it's related to the distance, the requirements, or the cost. Our families really do have a lot on their plate, a lot going on, and it's a challenge. And sometimes when it's not required or the hours don't line up with their schedule, sometimes early education kind of falls on the back burner. Okay, next slide. And finally, I would like to wrap up by sharing how us as Community Homeless Concerns Liaison collaborate with our community agencies to support students in unstable housing by having relationships with all of you that are here watching us today. This image you see here is from our state's infographic, which kind of shows you how we as Community Homeless Concerns Liaisons partner with our school agencies, our teachers, our counselors, the social workers, and our families, as well as link our families to whether it's early education, youth centers, shelters, things like that, whatever it could be to support their education and their housing. And finally, I would like to ask Donna if she would mind sharing our state liaison roster with all of you. There's a homeless concerns liaison in every complex area. And through this state liaison roster, you'll be able to identify the liaison that serves your area. And I am going to go ahead and share it back with you now.
Thanks so much. So as you heard, Head Start, as Larae was mentioning, have as one of their priority categories for enrollment homeless families birth to 5 to enable them to receive comprehensive child development services, health and nutrition services, support to their families. With Kasey, Kapa'alana is a very specifically targets families sheltered and unsheltered, and are providing services both on Oahu and Big Island, and I think Kasey said Kauai as well. And Sara has shared that she and 14 other of her counterparts across the state, community homeless concerns liaisons, are really trying to work with the K-12 population, but also in terms of their educational rights, as well as the younger siblings, and the community liaisons and are really trying to help link our younger siblings, birth to 5, to early childhood education support services. So we're just very thankful for all of the partnerships that they have been able to establish over the years and are continuing to seek out. And so part of our purpose today was to be able to share with all of you in the audience, in the event that you are either shelter or housing partners, if you are nonprofits who have access to food services or diapers and supplies for our infants, or if you are faith-based organizations who are currently serving homeless families in your communities, or if you are educational early childhood providers who might be interested in trying to do more in the way of outreach and enrollment to homeless kiddos and their families. For all of you out there, we're hoping that this has kind of helped to stimulate some thinking on your part in terms of ways that you can connect with either the providers who are on a panel today or others in the community. So at this time, I'd like to see if there are any questions that you might have for our panelists. And right now, the mode that we have is for you to type your questions into the Q&A box, which you can find in your lower right-hand section of your screen, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask of any of our panelists. And Donna will help to monitor questions. So please don't be shy. Ask your questions.
All right, Chris, it looks like we have a few questions in our chat or Q&A box. A couple of people are asking if they can get a copy of the presentation in PowerPoint.
Yeah, so we'll check with the conference. This is challenging because we were hoping to be able to have your contact information in the chat box, be able to send information out to you all. I think for right now, if you contact Donna or myself right now, maybe we can follow up and try to get that information to you all. The last slide in our PowerPoint does have contact information for all of our folks today. So yes, we'll try to get that to you.
Okay. Next question. I guess if you folks can let us know who the question is directed to, but I'll go ahead and read some of these. It is a question about what about families that are non-citizens and are homeless? How are they able to attend school without being affected negatively? So anyone can take a stab at that.
All right, I will take a stab at that. If we are speaking to any students in K-12 education, families that are non-citizens and that are homeless, they still have a right to an education, regardless if they are able to provide documentation showing their address. Typically, that's a big barrier. If a family is living, say, at the park, in their car, they're not able to prove to the school, like, hey, I'm in your district. So we'll work with them to help them identify the school that they can be attending. And, you know, we work with them once they are enrolled in school. We'll work with them to take care of any other requirements that might be from the school, whether that's like a TB test or if it's needing certain supplies to be successful in school. So we'll assist with that once they're enrolled. And then I'm not sure about the next question. How are they able to attend school without being affected negatively? I mean, these keikis definitely have a lot of challenges, and you know, we hope that when they're in school that they're able to have a little bit of sense of security. They're able to eat breakfast and lunch at no charge. They're able to be around their peers. So, you know, they definitely have some challenges, and we acknowledge that, but we do what we can to make school a safe place for them.
Thanks, Sarah, so much. And I'm wondering if Larae might have some comments with regards to Head Start, early Head Start services for our undocumented families.
So for Head Start, early Head Start, undocumented children or families, that is not a barrier. Each program actually has their own system on how to identify, you know, if you're Chris Jackson, if I'm Larae Balag. And that is as far as we go. All children, we take all children. And it's pretty clear across from our grant funders as well. Undocumented is not a category. We may track it, but it's not on the application up front. And so that hopefully isn't a barrier. And then for the second part of the question, you know, children at least from 0 to 5, and I'll speak on behalf of just the ECE world, you know, we do have a lot of children that have differences come into our classrooms, regardless if they're homeless, have a disability, or look different. But we do practice that everyone is special individually, and we hope that we're building that foundation with our families early in life and with that child, that there are no negative feelings towards others or towards other friends that they are attending school with. So, I mean, that's probably the best way to sum it up, at least for the ECE world.
Thanks, Larae. And Kasey, did you want to chime in here, or?
Sorry, sure. Same for us. We actually we don't document at all whether they're a citizen or not. All families are welcome. Some of our funders do restrict us to Native Hawaiian families. That is our priority, but we do serve all families that are in need or just need services, educational services.
Great. Thanks, Kasey. Donna, other questions you might see?
Yes, there's one more. Another one. It says, are unaccompanied youth able to sign for themselves on the questionnaire, or do they need a parent or guardian? I know who can answer that.
I'll answer that. Thanks for the question, Rebecca. That's a great question. It comes up commonly. Yes, unaccompanied youth are able to sign that questionnaire. Unaccompanied youth have the same right to education as their peers who are living with their parents. It's not a very talked about category, and we as our office are working to bring more awareness to this category. We do see it often in young children. You know, maybe I'm just going to use a common scenario that comes up. You know, maybe mom is going through some struggles and she's, you know, in a bad place, and the child gets dropped off with auntie, and auntie has no legal rights to this child, and they kind of try to do their best to fly under the radar. And we understand where they're coming from, but these kids still have the right to education. They still have the right to get enrolled in school right away. So typically the people that they're staying with are able to sign those documents. Sometimes if the children are older, maybe they're intermediate or high school kids, maybe they, you know, had a disagreement with their family members and now they're staying at a friend's house, they're able to sign for themselves and get enrolled in school.
Thank you, Sarah. Next question is, Lahaina Luna has an on-campus boarding. Has the thought of having access to school boarding homes ever been considered?
I would say not that I'm aware of, but it's ideas like this, like people getting together to generate creatively and think outside of the box is exactly the kind of conversations that we hope to facilitate.
Are there any other questions that folks might have?
Yes. So let's see. On the Q&A, how can we get more families in unstable housing to take advantage of services for their children under 5?
So I know that Kasey will be able to talk about the program that they have at Kalailoa and how they invite families to participate. Kasey, you want to try that?
Yeah. Sorry, guys. I'm having some trouble starting my video, so it just takes me a second to respond. Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure, Kasey. How can we get more families in unstable housing to take advantage of services for their children under 5?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. And currently we've been trying to do some outreach to families. And I think, you know, the hardest part, honestly, is identifying families who are doubled up. Honestly, oftentimes it's that they're ashamed or they don't want to receive the services. And so we're trying to do some outreaching. We're canvassing in the community. We're reaching out, you know, through workshops like this and just services so that we can reach out to these families and help them see that, you know, education is accessible for them despite the barriers. And, you know, one of our missions was to try and remove a lot of those barriers, right? Transportation was a barrier, so we tried to pop up at different shelters and in the homeless encampment, so that wasn't a barrier, right? Cost was a barrier, and so we have funds and grants, and the services are free. You know, we wanted to offer incentives like free lunch, free breakfast, diapers, wipes, hygiene products, and we're really trying to make it as simple for the families, and that's sort of how we're trying to get the word out. But absolutely looking at our website, I think connecting with partners like this is helpful. Maybe even calling your local shelters and seeing, you know, like how many kids are in there and how you can come out and reach out to families to get them connected. But that's just that we're doing word of mouth, we're doing advertising, we're partnering. You know, I think that's how we're getting families connected to these services.
One strategy that people says is very successful would be if the DHS subsidy workers or child care providers come directly to shelters and housing sites to, you know, have like attend family resource fairs and do direct recruitment and enrollment on site, so parents don't have to, you know, go to the DHS office to do their paperwork.
Right. Thanks, Barb, for that. I think in general, part of what we're trying to really promote is looking at creative partnerships where we're actually working more with the shelter and housing partners who have young families with young children to be knowledgeable about the community resources and services that are available to their families and kids. The more that we can partner with them to share with them the resources, whether it's child care subsidy assistance or just to know what early childhood programs in their communities are wanting to be able to serve these families would be one first step in helping to make that happen. In terms of motivating families themselves, I think as Kasey was mentioning, if there are ways that you can, well, obviously we all know that relationships is critical, right? So building trust, taking time to be able to have those conversations with families, having incentives that help them to begin to build that trust with you, whether it's, as Kasey mentioned, providing diapers and food access. To begin those conversations, we hope that that will also serve to be an incentive for our families. But that is challenging, the identification of families as well as being able to help them see the importance of enrolling their kiddos in early learning programs and services. They have so much on their plate and they have so many competing priorities that it makes it very challenging for them to see early education necessarily as a priority, but it's up to us, I think, as community members and partners to help to promote that message for them. Other questions that we might have? Maybe a few more?
There were other questions in the Q&A, Chris, and I believe Sara has chimed in and answered them. We are nearing our time.
Okay. There was one question about how can childcare providers get access to training on trauma-informed care?
So that's a really great question. There are a number of different entities that are providing workshops and support. So, People Attentive to Children, PATCH, our Child Care Resource and Referral Agency, has workshops. We also, Danny Goya, many of you may know him. He has his own nonprofit entity right now, but he's developed some trauma-informed care toolkits and training modules that will be made available very soon. He was able to do that through some funding with the Federal Preschool Development Grant with the Executive Office on Early Learning. But there are a number of different things happening in the community. I think we just have to be able to figure out a venue for being able to share that when those events become available. You could reach out to one of us after this, and if we have your contact information, we can be able to share more with you. I think because we only have a few minutes left for the session, we're going to go ahead and stop with the Q&A. Sorry we weren't able to get to more. But we did want to highlight some key takeaways from our session. So Jason, if you could share your screen again and go to the key takeaway slide. So we wanted to just highlight a few key takeaways from today's session. Number one, participation in early childhood programs promotes greater resiliency of young children and helps set them on a more successful path to success in school and in life. Number two, there are many opportunities for partnerships across our state, and we should be expanding these in order to be able to better support Keiki experiencing homelessness. And number three, which is critical for today's session, you can be a Keiki connector by partnering with stakeholders in your communities to develop linkages for needed resources and services. And our last slide. As we bring this session to a close, we wanted to leave you with this thought as you go throughout the rest of your day. What action will you take as a result of today's session? What new partnerships or connections will you make to better support our youngest Keiki experiencing homelessness? And our final slide. If you have any questions that you'd like to follow up with individuals on our panel, here's their contact information. We'll leave this up for a few minutes. So Barbara DeBaryshe, again, with the University of Hawaii, regarding the needs assessment that she shared earlier. Larae Balag is the Early Head Start Director in Maui Family Support Services, and she might be able to link you to other Head Start, Early Head Start directors. Kasey Galariada with Partners in Development Kapa'alana Program. And Sara with the DOE Homeless Concerns Liaisons. And if there are other liaisons that you would like to get connected with, I'm sure Sara can help facilitate that as well. And then my contact information is there as well. So notice that Donna didn't include hers, but Donna is Donna Monibog at k12.hi.us.
Thank you, Chris. And I also pasted this contact info of our panelist and moderator in your chat box. So take a snapshot of that. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks so much for doing that, Donna. And so we just wanted to thank you all again for joining us, and enjoy the rest of the conference. And we're going to be punting back to Jason.
Okay, thank you. Yes, thank you to everyone for attending, and thank you to our panelists for a wonderful session, a very educational session. I have put in the chat box the link back to the City's Office of Housing's webpage for the conference. So you can find the links to the next session for today. It starts at 11 o'clock in a few minutes. So you can find it there. And just want everyone to remember that this is a 2-day conference this year. So remember to come back tomorrow for more wonderful sessions and more good information. But yes, once again, thank you all for coming. Hope you have a great rest of the day, and thank you very much. Aloha.
Aloha, everybody.